The moment there is a shortage of trust, everybody notices it in a very real way. Trust is like oxygen. We can't go without it. It's absolutely a necessity to have a relationship functioning in a healthy way. But if the trust is there, one often don't even realize that there is a level of trust until somebody mistrusts you or do something that shows you that this person doesn't trust you. And then you miss it and you notice it, and people around you notice it in a very real way. So today we'd like to look at some practical tools on establishing and maintaining and even repairing trust, um, whether it's personal relationships or team relationships, business or personal, and then to ensure that a foundation for a culture of trust is laid. That would be more on the corporate side, but even in our homes. How do we make sure that there's a foundation of trust that we can actually build strong, healthy relationships on? It is my objective in this session to help you become aware of any change that's needed in the relationships that you have where trust is possibly an issue. I would like to create within you a desire to make the necessary changes if there are changes to be made, and to share with you some tools and skills to help you make that change. And if possible, maybe you will leave the session motivated to persist with any good intentions that you make during today's session until that desired outcome becomes a new reality in your life. Okay, so now I'd like you to make use of the chat box, and please, guys, please help us make this session meaningful. I would like you to type in the chat box just a few words on how you view trust. So I'm going to give you a minute or two, just in the chat box, write down what comes to mind when you think about trust. What is your personal view on trust? So in the chat box, if you don't mind. Dave, as they come up, please feel free to share some of those as they come up so that we can get an idea of what are the kind of things that people are indeed saying.
Yeah, I will do that, Steph.
What is your personal view on trust? In the chat box.
From Justine, she says, depending on someone to do what they say they will.
Fantastic. Thank you, Justine. Welcome, Justine. Glad you're here. What is your personal view on trust?
Jimmy says to do what you say and be what you say you are.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you, Jimmy.
And then Dave Miller says having confidence in a person's word. Sunganani says to allow me. Amanda Lucy says having faith in someone or something. Dion suggests at all times I do not have to doubt about someone's intentions or deeds. Thelma says being able to rely on someone. Edwin Donker says fulfilling one's responsibilities.
Okay. So guys, thank you so much. There's some extremely valuable things coming out in the chat box. Now, when you think about trust, you can just say that when in all of those comments that was made, it's clear that people feel strongly about that. And when you start speaking to people about trust and how they feel about trust, you will find that trust is basically divided into two views, two groups of people, and we will get back to that in a short while to see what would be your dominant view, your basic view on trust. But the first group of people would be people that say trust needs to be earned. I reserve my trust until you have proven yourself trustworthy. That's the first group. The second group is that group of people that says everyone deserves to be trusted. I trust you, I trust everyone and anyone until you have proven to me that you are not trustworthy. Those would be the two extremes. I don't trust anybody, you need to prove to me that you can be trusted. And I trust everyone until they have proven me wrong. Now, We will have a look at what you believe your dominant view is in a short moment. But every one of us has a bias towards one of these views. And life happens in different places on a scale between these two views. And it's not that we look at everything and every situation specifically at the same place on that bias. Some people you'll find be more towards this side and some people more towards that side in different relationships in my life. But you will find some people being more tend to say, I don't trust until you have proven yourself, and another group that I do trust until you have proven me wrong. Okay, so the question is, even if you are in the group of people that says, I trust you until you've proven me wrong, or in the group that says, I don't trust people until they've proven themselves trustworthy. How do you feel, and what comes to mind if you say, but if somebody has broken your trust? Okay, so bear that in mind. I've got two questions for the chat box for you now. You'll see the one group one is nobody can fully be trusted, and the other one is everybody deserves to be trusted. Now, I'd like you to, on this scale of where you fall, to select a number. Now, you can't select 5. Sorry, that's a cop-out. So if you feel you want to select 5, would you rather see yourself more towards 10, just on the right of that middle mark, or just to the left? So just a number in the chat box. And then if you also can, just mention what if somebody has broken your trust. But I'm interested in that number. Please. Are they coming through, Dave?
If Dion says 7, Sunganani says 6, Day says 8, Jimmy says 7, Monday says 9, Frida says 6.
Okay. We haven't got anyone to the left of that line yet.
Eileen says 8. Jacqueline says 7.
Great stuff. Okay, so let's stand with that number so far. Thank you very much, guys, for participating. Now, it's interesting that this group that we have are more towards the second group of people that says, I trust people. I trust people. Now, one will know and find that wherever I fall on this scale has pretty much to do with two things. First of all, my personality and the house that I grew up, and secondly, the experiences I've had. So how many times has it happened that your trust was broken, or people really did something that you didn't expect from them, or you've actually put your trust in somebody and you got hurt in a very real way? And that determines that level often of where we find ourselves. And you'll also find that depending on what happens in my life, next time I do this exercise, I might just find myself at a different place. But the people that normally go to the left of that line, you'll find them saying things like this: I'll start letting my guard down when people stop giving me reasons to keep it up. Now, guess who said this? Anonymous. Okay. Another quote: I've learned that it takes years to build up trust, and it only takes suspicion, not proof, to destroy it. Guess who said this? You're right, Anonymous. Third quote: people ask me, why is it so hard to trust? I ask them, why is it so hard to keep a promise? Guess who said this? Anonymous. No, you're wrong. This was said by Unknown. Okay, guys, so there is a real a group that has got a real problem to trust, because what you see there is people have broken their trust. People have hurt them. And I speak to people quite often, and they say, you know what, I will trust people. I will trust them. But my goodness, don't break my trust. Because once you have broken my trust, You've had it. Don't ask me to trust you again. But then the next question comes up in my mind, but what if you have messed up? You know, I haven't met somebody yet who hasn't messed up somewhere in his life, who hasn't forgotten a promise, who hasn't, with good intention promised stuff and couldn't deliver. We all mess up. We all make mistakes. And it's so clear that every single person that I speak with, including myself, feel that we deserve a second chance. Actually, we deserve more than second chances because we know the context within which we have messed up. And when we get to this point, it is so important that we remind ourselves that the people that we are dealing with are also human beings. That we learn to accept people with their flaws and allow them space to mess up. And the stronger and the deeper the relationship grows, the more space we allow for people's mistakes. But the other side is also, the more it happens that we don't really concentrate on keeping our promises because he or she will understand. So it is very important that first of all, I understand where on the scale I fall, but how I deal with people making mistakes and actually letting me down is also extremely important. Okay, now I've got a few slides, two slides that has a list of things that speak about my own behavior that is somehow directly and indirectly connected to my own level of trustworthiness. Now, what I have learned in my life and what I have seen in many sessions before is that we don't even realize some of the things that we are doing is actually affecting people's ability to trust us. It's affecting people's ability to really feel comfortable that we are going to deliver. And we wouldn't necessarily link that to trust. But indeed, it does have a very specific role and link when it comes to people's ability to trust me. Now, once you have read through this list, and I'll open up the first list and then the second list, and I'll keep it up, I'd like you to be brave enough to look at those areas and put in the chat box the one or two things that you believe you are indeed guilty of. Okay. Now, forget about the never, seldom, often, always, and almost always. If you have something below often or seldom and up to never, have a look at these things. The behavior is keeping commitments. The second one is being thorough, following through, honoring confidence, confidential information. You know, somebody telling you in confidence something. Demonstrate belief in others. In other words, how well do I empower? Do I trust people to deliver on what I ask them to do? Giving room for other people's opinions. So in meetings, and when I sit and we have a debate or discussion about something, how opinionated am I as an individual? Checking our facts, not just relating a story and just telling somebody something without making sure that I have checked my facts. In other words, not making assumptions, even if it's a story or something in the news. Listen to other people's opinions. So it's one thing to give room for people's opinions and then never to actually adapt your own view. Reserving judgment. People mess up. How judgmental am I? Present facts even if they are unfavorable. So if I'm a team leader or I'm a manager or I'm a company owner and there are certain things happening that is affecting the business, how open and honest am I with the facts? Okay, so have a look at this list. The next list. Dealing with difficult issues, irrespective. So do I avoid? Do I beat around the bush? Do I soft cushion it? Or do I deal with the hard issues? Explaining, and motivating own decisions, even with our children, with our team members, with our spouses, with our friends? Do we believe it's necessary that I explain myself? Sharing credit and praise. A willingness to be accountable, not to shift blame, to take the accountability for things going wrong. Words and actions are consistent. Be clear about intentions. Objective, no favoritism. Controlling my temper. And being consistent in giving support. Okay, so if there is one thing from this list and one thing from the other list that you believe you are actually neglecting, you can put that in the chat box for us. So long. If you need any one of these slides to be changed, I mean, feel free to also unmute yourself if you want to me to just put it up again. So let's see what comes in the chat boxes. Which of these things are we actually making ourselves guilty of? Where's the brave ones?
Okay, Dion says reserve judgment and control temper.
Thank you for your honesty, Dion.
Marlene says assuming in judgment.
Okay, not checking our facts. Hey, Eveline, yes, we are making ourselves guilty of that.
Sorry, Patience says keeping commitments.
Thank you for your honesty, Patience.
Monday says a willingness to be accountable.
Okay, wow, that's a big one.
Justine says dealing with difficult issues. And Jimmy also says dealing with difficult issues and judgments.
Okay, being judgmental sometimes. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, guys. Sure. It's real things, these. And what I think what you also need to do is you need to ask yourself, how is this affecting people's ability to trust me? And what is the link between this that is a problem? If you are judgmental, people might just, or we tend to be judgmental, people might just be afraid to say, but listen, I did something wrong. They won't trust that you will be objective and make space for this. If we don't keep our commitments, people will struggle sometimes to give. Now we all are guilty of some of these things from time to time. The thing is, what is it that we need to be careful for? Because it affects people's ability to trust me. It's affecting my own trustworthiness. Okay, right. So the question that I'd like us to just talk about is how do a leader create trust? How does a leader create trust? There's a spelling mistake. My apology. It's not do, it's does. How does one create trust as a leader? Think about that question. Now, I think a lot of people will automatically think about example, leading by example. How trusting am I? How trustworthy am I? And then my people, my children, my spouse, my friends following my example. But what can a leader do if he sits with a person that there's a lack of trust between them, or he sits with a team where maybe something has happened and somebody in the team or the team as a whole is not trusting him as a leader? What can a leader do? Anybody who feels like unmuting themselves and just sharing with us, with the group is small enough, we don't have to do it in the chat box. Anyone who says, I think a leader can create an environment of trust by doing the following, please feel free to unmute yourself.
Stefan, I would say consistency.
Consistency, that's Dion, eh?
That's right.
Hi, Dion. Consistency of actions. Thank you, Dion. Yes. Anybody else?
I think you have to be understanding. When the person feels that you understand him or her better, they will open up to you.
Okay, who spoke to us now?
This is Thelma.
Thelma, guys, if you can just identify yourself when you unmute yourself. Thelma, thank you so much. Yes, so true. Anybody else? One last person.
Stefan, it's Day, yeah? I would
Yes,
say
Day.
that you need to be impartial. If a leader is impartial, there's a lot more that you trust a lot more if the leader is impartial. And that covers a range of staff from top to bottom.
Oh, great stuff. Thank you, Day. The leader must be impartial. That leads to people trusting the leader more. Let's give one last person a chance and then we move on.
Stefan, Jimmy, I would say act with integrity. What you say in front of a person or how you act in front of one employee, be the same whether you in front of him or somebody else. I think a big thing is people say things, which presents their true character. And then you think, well, if you can say that behind that person's back, what are you saying behind my back?
Absolutely. Thank you, Jimmy. So true. So guys, would you agree with me that all the examples that we've had now were all in the leader's own behavior, in basically the example that the leader sets for people around them, people seeing that, and because of that behavior, it is actually easier or less easy or difficult to actually trust a leader. What is interesting, guys, is that one of the biggest way of creating trust in your team or your environment as a leader is to risk to trust. To risk to trust. If you think about parenting, same as with your team members, there is no more effort or not effort and pressure on an individual when somebody gives him her trust. I trust you with this. I trust you with this. I trust you will do the right thing. I trust you will do your best. I trust you will come to me if you don't know what. I give you my trust. And the only way to really cultivate trust in the environment where I live and I work is to start risking to trust. To give people your trust. Which means that, and it's so good to see that the group that I'm dealing with are all a group of people who actually are doing pretty well on the bias to trust. Are a lot more trusting than some of the other groups I have worked with before. But if you look at these quotes, the only way to make a man trustworthy is to trust him. That is said by Henry Louis Stimson. He is a politician, but at least his name is written down. If you look at what Dr. Samuel Johnson said, he said it is better to suffer wrong than to do it. And here's the thing. And happier to be sometimes cheated than not to trust. Frank H. Crane, also a writer, said that you may be deceived if you trust too much, but you will live in torment if you don't trust enough. So for me to cultivate an environment of trust, it does make a lot of sense that I actually practice to move towards that scale on the right-hand side where I say I risk to trust. Yes, I know I'm going to burn myself here and there. You know, I spoke to somebody years ago and in this conversation I said to him, you know what is my problem? I trust too easily. And he blew me away with his response when he turned around and says, don't ever change that. Trust too easily. Now, guys, if somebody has proven him or herself not trustworthy, don't be foolish. Don't be foolish. But he must have proven himself not trustworthy. If somebody has got a real problem, like a psychological problem, and for example, a pedophile, and we know that it's there, that person, I mean, don't be foolish to trust somebody that cannot be trusted. But in general, be a person that risks giving your trust, allowing people space to make mistakes. Knowing that and actually managing your own expectations that I am dealing with people here and they are going to let me down from time to time. Right. So what is very important is that we don't have to agree on anything we've discussed this far. But this thing I do know, that whatever your view on trust is the cause and is affecting the current situation in your relationships. The level of trust in our relationships is directly related to my view on trust. So if I am struggling in a specific area with trust at work or a specific relationship, I need to ask myself, what is my current view or level of trust in this situation? Because that is impacting that. Okay, so now the first and only tool that I'd like to share with you today is called the trust equation. Now there are other equations available out there. If you go and you Google that, you might not find this one, but there are other versions of this one which has got a bit of a different angle to this. But this is a trust equation that tells us the different areas in different relationships and why my wife doesn't trust me with certain things and absolutely trust me with other things, and why some people are going to struggle trusting you with certain things and have no problems with other things. And the T stands for trust. The V stands for alignment of values. My values, my character, my integrity, my ethics, my beliefs, my principles, and whether I'm talking about fact or perception, it's got the same effect. Whether I think our values are well aligned or whether they are aligned indeed, whether I think our values are not aligned at all or they are not aligned at all, it's got the same effect on the trust equation. Now, things that play a role here would be religion, it would be culture, it would be even gender, it would be upbringing, what part of town are you from? All of these things affect our perception of values, what is valuable to people, what people value. And my perception or the knowledge of how well our values are aligned is what we're talking about in V. If we talk about C, we're talking about credibility, we're talking about competence, we're talking about past consequences. Has this person failed at this thing many a time? How well does he understand what he needs to do? So has he got the papers? I mean, the reason why we can actually get into a plane without worrying who sits in front is our conviction that this person has gone through the necessary minimum requirements, and this person should be credible, otherwise he wouldn't sit where he's sitting. Why we open our mouth when we go to the dentist. And although we are afraid, we believe this person is credible. Why? There's something against the wall. In our teams, we will have a conversation and say, have you done it before? How well have you done it? When we do an interview, we get an idea of how credible this person is in terms of delivering on the job. Okay, so the last one, that would be the C. The last one is risk. What can I lose? What do I stand to lose? What can go wrong in this process? And what we do is we actually score these things and we do a calculation, and that gives me a trust score. That's the first thing, but that is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that this actually equips me for the right conversation to address the trust issue. Okay, so let me explain further. So if you look at V, values, C, and risk, these things get scored either a 1, a 2, or a 3. So if I can go back here, if I have a low alignment of values, that would be a 1. If I have a high alignment of values, that would be a 3. A 1, a 2, or a 3. Only those 3. High credibility would be 3, medium credibility, low credibility 1. High risk 3, medium risk, low risk 1. So 1, 2, 3, high, medium, low. Okay, and as we score it, these things play out in the following way. The lowest possible trust score you can get is a low alignment of values 1, low credibility 1, high risk 3, that's a third, which is the trust score. The highest possible trust score you can get is high alignment of values, high credibility, low risk. 3 times 3 is 9, divided by 1 is 9. And then any comparison, you get high alignment of values, low credibility, high risk. Or low values, high credibility, medium risk. And every time you do this calculation, it gives you the result. Now have a look at this. If you look at my example of my wife trusting me, there's high alignment of values. Okay? The credibility is I have forgotten the children to pick them up from school and I had to turn around and they waited at the gate for long. So the credibility is not on a 3, it's possibly a 2, possibly a 1, depending on what the situation. But let's look at the risk. Can you see that the risk is extremely high? So I have high alignment of values, low credibility, high risk, which gives me a trust score that is not that good. If you look at the other situation, so let me just quickly conclude there. My conversation with my wife, I don't get upset with her. Sometimes I do, but I mean, I'm wrong. Fact is, I'm wrong. But if we have to have a conversation around this, why are you constantly reminding me to remember the kids? It's easy. Hey, you've forgotten them twice. Are you with me? But if I look at my team, and I don't trust this person in a specific role, I need to ask myself, what is the reason for that? I do this quick calculation. Do I believe there's alignment of values? Absolutely. I trust this guy's integrity. I know he's honest or she's honest. Credibility, I don't know if he's up to this task. So immediately my trust score on credibility comes down. And then the risk, depending on the risk, if it's a smallish project, I might say, well, let him try it. I'm going to stand back. Or if it's a high risk, no, I can't let this project run like that. But now immediately what this does, it informs the conversation. It equips me to have that conversation. So I can go to Jenny and say, Jenny, listen, I know you are absolutely a person of integrity, and I know you are brilliant at what you do. But I am also aware you've never worked on this system before, or you've never worked on a deal this size, and the risk is extremely high. If something goes wrong in this case, we will lose X amount of money. And in that case, I can say, so Jenny, how are we going to deal with the fact that you've never done a project like this before? And Jenny can say to me, Stefan, listen, this part I'm very comfortable about, but that part, maybe if John can help me, or if I can have a go-to person, or if you can just be available. And if I say to her, Jenny, if it's okay with you, I'd like to be close to this project. It's not to do with you as an individual, but it has to do with the risk. So just as a last example, if you look at the person and the risk and the action, this example will then help you to have that conversation. For example, if I owe my neighbor 100 Rand, my son is trustworthy, he knows where the neighbor stays, he runs across, I give him the 100 Rand, I don't even think about it. If I owe him 10,000 Rand, I might just walk around. It's the risk. It's not the boy. It's not the person. If we have certain trust issues because I believe our values are not aligned, the conversation that I will have with Tabu in this example will be around values. Tabu, what is important in your life? Where are you coming from? Tell me more about your upbringing. Tell me why are you doing the job that you do? And in my mind, I'm gathering information, and based on the information Tabu gives me, I'm either going to settle on that score of 1 in terms of the value alignment, or I might put it up 1, I might even put it up 2, and immediately the trust score is affected in a very real way. Now, what we'd like you to do is, when you are sitting in a situation where there is a problem with trust, do the math. Do the math. Put the trust equation and see where is the element that is lacking. Then prepare for and have that conversation with an open mind. Remember, you can prepare yourself for that conversation. You're not going to walk and say, I don't trust you because I don't believe that you're a man of integrity. I'm going to find out how true is what I think I know about this individual. I'm going to have this conversation with an open mind. Accept and take responsibility for self. In other words, if I had it wrong, admit it. And shift your own disposition, shift your own angle, and shift your own approach. And then lastly, forgive, set free, show grace when necessary, be real, and be brave. Right. So, this is basically what I had in mind, guys. So this is actually opening us for question and answers. It's actually creating the opportunity for you to decide what are the kind of things in terms of the trust relationships that you have in your life that you need to stop doing. What are the kind of things that you really need to start doing because you're not doing it? There are certain things you might be doing that you don't do enough, and certain things that you don't do enough. But this is where we open this conversation. I'd like you to feel absolutely comfortable to unmute yourself and ask a question. If you rather feel more comfortable in the chat box, I mean, feel free to put it in the chat box. But let's just have a conversation. What would be the situation? Maybe you have a question about a specific relationship, and we can help you think about that. Who's going to be first?
Stefan,
Yes.
Daniel has asked if you can please show the previous slide again.
The one with the list? This one? Sangunani?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'll leave this one up for the rest of you. Anyone who wants to unmute themselves, ask a question, make a contribution, please feel free to do so.
Hi, my name is Ajiman. I don't know if I can go ahead.
Yes, please, Ajiman, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, so I joined a bit late, but I see what has been shared to be very, very great. However, my question is this workable only in relation to projects or to certain specific activities, or you can work out the mass and that should be your understanding of a particular person? I don't know if you are getting the
Yes,
point.
I think I understand you. So as simple as I've gone through a divorce. That's personal. I've gone through a divorce, and I'm entering in a new relationship, and I'm struggling with trust in this new relationship. Or I just have a friend at work, and I don't trust this friend. Can I do the math in all these instances? And the answer is absolutely, absolutely. It is as real and as workable in any of those situations. Let me just get my slide to work, and I'd like to go back to this, for example. So if it's a personal situation, obviously not necessarily in terms of a project. Let's say I got hurt in a previous relationship, and I'm really struggling because this person has been unfaithful to me. And I walk into a new relationship and I continue on the second and the third date because I do believe that our values are aligned, and this person is actually, credible, hasn't been unfaithful in the past. For whatever I know about this person, is not actually going to hurt me from what I can see. The fact of the matter is, I got so badly hurt. I mean, I speak to people in sessions often where they say, I get ladies saying to me, I will never trust any man ever again in my life. Why do they say that? It's because of the risk. They got hurt in a very real bad way. So what can go wrong? This person can also be unfaithful. This person can also cheat on me. And if I get cheated another time, I won't be able to work through the pain and the hurt that I have worked through in the past. And therefore, I need to have a risk conversation. So I'll sit this person down and say, listen, please, understand, it's not you. It's me. I am so afraid to get hurt. So help me deal with this risk. And in this conversation, if that person shows her true understanding of the risk I have, what I stand to lose, suddenly in my mind, the risk becomes less. I don't know if I answer you. Does that make a difference?
Yes, it does.
Thank you so much for your question.
So
Anybody else?
Maybe
Yes.
one more to add.
Yes.
So what becomes clear to me is that the result of the equation can be higher in a particular circumstance and can be lower in a particular circumstance, depending, with reference to the same person.
Absolutely.
So, for instance, if I have
Absolutely.
a colleague and I'm going to run a business with a colleague, the issue of credibility where you talk about past results and then competencies, in terms of business, probably could be high.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing a different thing with that same person who may have low competency in that particular project, then in that particular project, the trust equation, the result is likely to be low. So what I'm saying is that it means that depending on what you are running with the person, the result could be changing.
Absolutely, you've got it. That's exactly the point. Is that I won't even think twice to put this person into this project, and the trust is high because the credibility is there, and I know the alignment of values. But the moment I put him in another project, because of a lack of credibility, lack of experience, maybe mistakes in the past, I have a bit of an issue. So it shifts from project, situation, and people. When I speak to leaders, I get them to do this equation with their team members and then have this trust conversations on the different issues with them. And every new project, it could be a different conversation, but this is informing the conversation. Well said and well spotted there. Thank you so much for your contribution. Anybody else? Are there no questions, no comments? Anybody wants to add? Ask. I mean, you don't have to ask a question. You can actually share with us also something if you want to.
Stephen, maybe one more thing from my end, Ajiman again.
Yes, Ajiman.
So, for instance, when you do the math, so I like this page. Please go back to the previous page.
That's right.
No.
The next one?
The strategy.
Oh, the strategy. Sorry.
Okay, so point 3, my question is, can you throw more light on how point 3 can be handled very well? So for instance, if I do the math and I realize that the trust is low, maybe based on credibility, could you be able to throw some point on how I can handle the conversation in that open manner such that it yields a positive result?
Okay, so obviously it depends on the situation. It could be a lack of experience. It could be past mistakes. It could be a fact that I just don't think he's got the necessary knowledge or competence, even if he's done it before. That would inform the conversation. But to be honest and open in that conversation is very important. Is to say, listen, at this stage, it's not a personal thing. It's more about credibility from let's say an experience point of view. And but then you can ask him, how can I help you to get the experience, or how can I help you to support you in this? How do you see us doing this? I have an actual coaching questionnaire around that, and if you want to, you can actually send us your email address and just remind us, and I can actually send you an example of this, but just some questions. But the thing is, Ajiman, you need to use the reality and the information that is applicable in that conversation for or in that situation for the conversation. So depending on what is causing the lack of credibility would be put on the table as a conversation point. Not say, no, you've never done it before, I don't think you can do it, and I don't trust you on this. That's not the point. It is to say, let me see, it is my perception that you are not really qualified for this because you haven't done it before. Do you think you can do it? Why do you think? What are you going to do in the situation? But at the end of that conversation, you need to be comfortable that whatever you've put in place will actually serve the purpose of the project or the task.
Thank you.
Okay, Ajiman. Anybody else?
Okay, Stephen, have you completed, or have you...
Yeah, so I have come to the end of my presentation. Sorry, let me just get out here. I think what is very important, guys, is if you have a piece of paper next to you, is that you do your own SSML. is to say, what is it that I need to stop doing? What is it that I need to start doing? What do I need to do more? And what do I need to do less? At this point, I'm happy if there are no questions and no comments. Guys, thank you so much for being here, for trusting us, pun intended, to attend this session. I really hope that you all got something out of it, and that it wasn't a waste of time for you. And at this stage, I'd like to hand over to Dave, who just wants to talk to you about the MCA Executive Club.
Okay, thank you, Stefan. Thank you very much for that excellent webcast. It was absolutely brilliant. Some very, very important and valuable information that we can use as leaders and as people in our relationships. So again, Steph, thank you. Thanks for your knowledge and your wisdom, and thanks to all of you for joining us. We will be able to send you the webcast. If you just leave your a message in the chat box saying you want the presentation, we will certainly get that to you. Also, just for those of you that don't yet know of the MCA Executive Club, if any of you are interested in looking at the MCA Executive Club and having a presentation done for either yourself as individuals or your organization, please just let us know. You can leave your name and your number and email in the chat box, and we will certainly get back to you. This is an exclusive club of brilliant, brilliant training, and so many different training programs that we do. You won't believe how cheap it is and how effective it is, and you'll have access to leaders from all over the world as well. So please, if you're interested, please come back to us. Our next webinar or webcast, we're not allowed to use webinar anymore, so we have to call it webcast. It'll be on the 3rd of September, and that will be presented by Abdul Hussain Tijani. And I will be doing a webcast exclusively for the MCA Executive Club on the 20th of August, entitled Conscious Leaders Create in High-Performing Cultures. So please, if you're interested in the Executive Club, please feel free to send us a message and we'll get back to you. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us. Again, Stefan, thank you so much for your contribution. We really, really appreciate it, and we appreciate your participation, everyone. Have an incredible, incredible day and a wonderful and powerful, positive week. Bye.